The Paris-Dakar Rally has always been motorsport in January. Ever since Cyril Neveu was victorious back in 1979 on a motorbike for the very first Dakar, it has been a bastion of motorsport the world over during the first month of the year. We've had heroes, we've had heroines, we've had disasters, we've had tears of joy and tears of pain. It is a very, very physically demanding event, and anybody who even gets to the finish is worthy of a medal. We've got some highlights of the last 25 years here on Speed. We hope you enjoy them. Between 1979 and 1991, the Eiffel Tower in Paris saw the departure of the Dakar Rally on a route that was roughly the same, going through countries like Algeria, Niger, Mali and of course Senegal. The average distance was between 5,500 miles and 9,000 miles over a maximum of 20 days. However, the biggest Dakar was in 1988 when there were 603 competitors, still a record. Big changes though in 92, it was Paris-Cape Town. It went from north to the south of Africa, 22 stages, 7,700 miles, and it went through Black Africa, the tropics for the first time, and of course the crossing of the equator. That was the only rally not to involve Dakar itself until this year. In 94, it was Paris-Dakar and Paris again. Another milestone with competitors going through France, Spain, Morocco, Mauritania, and to discover the Atlantic coast that was to become a regular route. However, that same year, of course, they had to return to Paris, doing a total of 8,500 miles. In 97, it was Dakar, Agadez Dakar, only 5,000 miles, exclusively in Africa, going through Senegal, Mali, Niger and Mauritania to finally finish at the most westerly point of Africa, next to the legendary Lac Rose, the Pink Lake in Dakar. Another different route was in 2000 when it went west to east. The Dakar Cairo went through Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger and Libya, finally ending up in Egypt, with just under 5,000 miles of route, taking it to one of the shortest events in history. But surely it was one of the most spectacular finish lines at the foot of the pyramids. Stay tuned, Speed Channel's look back at the 25 years of the Dakar Rally will return after this. The sand is the competitor's biggest enemy on the Dakar. And on this day, January the 9th, 94, 9 years ago, it was particularly hostile when the drivers were to cover the Dune Morte, a triangle of some 17 miles of very, very soft sand. The route was chosen by the race director Founil. However, no one managed to cross the dunes, leading to the bike stage eventually to be cancelled. But for the cars, it was not to be. The Citroëns and Mitsubishis fought for the win. They both ran into the same trouble. And at that point, Bruno Sarbi and Jean-Pierre Fontenay were the only two remaining Mitsus in the event. But they were well down the order. So on that day, it was their chance to catch the Citroëns. But they had to cross the dunes. For Citroën, they had different ideas. And they bypassed the dunes to the south. And they hoped that the stage would be cancelled. It was a game of cat and mouse. However, with the race director Founil, he said this is the rally, it's like poker. We have two leading cars here and two leading cars on the other side of the dune, so you better continue. Hubert Auriol saying, you're the one who has to make the decision, and you too, he replies. You took the decision to bypass the dunes. Pierre Lartigue saying, but we couldn't cross them. You don't even send your course opening cars through, so don't lie to us. Tempers were getting frayed, but back with the Mitsubishi cars, they continued to battle with the dunes. We're driving, and Founil doesn't want to stop the stage, so it's our only chance to get up in the overall standings. The Citroens arrived into the bivouac at 4:30 in the morning, but because they bypassed checkpoint 8, they were then set for a heavy penalty. And at dawn, no one knew where the Mitsubishis were. Sabi and Fontenay had spent all night trying to cross the dunes, and early in the morning, they were still there. We got stuck maybe 200 times, and we had to dig ourselves out 200 times. It was crazy. Finally, the Mitsubishis finished the stage well over the timing limit. But their effort was worthless as the stewards decided that the stage would be taken at checkpoint 5, some 80 miles before the dunes. It was a double whammy for the team. They had no time for service, no time for sleep, and the team decided to withdraw from the rally. Mitsubishi left, though, with the satisfaction of being the only cars to have actually done the precise route that day. Thierry Sabine was the original Dakar. He had a leading spirit, rare of a man of his age, but one that is all around us even now.
Ces deux images, l'image de l'homme et du chameau et l'image de
Look at these two pictures, the one of the man and the camel, and the picture of the man with his machine racing across the desert at 200 kilometers an hour. These two pictures blend in together, they pass each other with the greatest of respect. In 1979, Thierry Sabine, at 32 years old, organised the very first Paris-Dakar. He had an enormous amount of charisma and was listened to intensely by the competitors. Many who contested the early rallies said that he deliberately made the going far too difficult for them as retirements grew every year on year. But he had other thoughts.
The
difficulty of the event is my fault, yes, but this is the Dakar. Anyway, like a boat race crossing the Atlantic, when a competitor gets hit by a big wave, no one complains to the organisers. So, I repeat that this event is a difficult rally. But Thierry Sabine was close to all of the competitors, and he didn't hesitate to help anybody who was in trouble. He motivated them all of the time. And once he was up in his helicopter, he was always in his white overalls with his beard and his sunglasses. Thierry Sabine was admired, and many of them even called him Jesus. He was the boss, but he also knew the risks. He says no matter who you are, you must be modest with the desert. It's a lesson of modesty before anything else. If the desert accepts us today, everything will be cool. If not, it's out of our hands. Thierry Sabine died on January the 14th, 1986 in Mali when his helicopter crashed. His ashes were spread at the foot of the Tenere tree, but Sabine had always discussed death, and he always wished that the Dakar continued. More stories from 25 years of the Dakar after this. We do all of these miles on the Dakar Rally, but how do we know where we're going? Well, that's down to Patrick Zanaroli. He says that the last recce we make is in October. That's the most important one. We do the whole of the route to get every detail noted, metre by metre, kilometre by kilometre. We really do the exact route to make the road book to be used by the competitors over the entire event. When we are in the dunes and well off the beaten track, I make one of our cars go in advance of us on the exact heading so that when I see their direction, I can then make the road book with the least deviations if there is a problem for the leading car. Those problems do happen. Here the leading car says, Patrick, please go left or right as I'm stuck here. Communication between the two cars obviously absolutely paramount.
Alors le roadbook, ben, c'est pas compliqué. On
But
fait
for
le
the
relevé
roadbook, it's
à l'instant
not very
au
complicated
kilométrique
as we make notes
correspondant.
for
On
the
fait le
kilometres
schéma. On donne
together
une
with
petite
very important
observation.
information regarding
Surtout axé
safety
sur la sécurité, pas tellement
rather than
sur,
absolute speed, because
donner une
when the
impression de
drivers
vitesse
are
ou
actually
une
doing the event, they're driving by
caractéristique pour favoriser le
sights,
pilotage,
and
parce
we
que
need to
faut
make them
savoir que
aware
c'est
of
du
visual
pilotage à
indications
vue.
for the
Mais
route.
surtout, c'est tout ce qui
We
est au
note
niveau
what
sécurité,
we think will be
lorsqu'il y a des
dangerous,
jumps,
such
des
as
quartiers,
jumps,
des saignées,
holes,
tout
drops,
ce qui est
and other
important.
potential
Et voilà.
pitfalls. Retiring from the Dakar Rally has always been painful, whether it be through mechanical problems or crashes, or even fire. It was tough for everybody. Sometimes you're lucky and you get away with it. Other times, things go very wrong. Sometimes it's just plain finger trouble. Other times, it's a little more well thought out. Sometimes we're on board. Other times you just get stuck in a rut. Some struggle on, and some are just worn out because they're so tired.
Ah ouais, plus impossible. Arrêtez comme ça. Merde, rien mieux qu'ici, c'est pas pour s'arrêter.
Sometimes you have to drop it to save yourself going through the dip, but at least that sand is soft. Thrall. Sometimes you fall off your bike, even when it's stationary. Other times, the suspension breaks. Other times, the bike is just too big. Sometimes you lose your temper. And even the best can get caught out. And when you've got no wagon, you just have to walk. We'll be back with more tales of the Dakar Rally. Stay with us. There were 170 competitors for the first Dakar back in '79, and amongst them were the Moreau brothers, Claude and Bernard. They were amateurs, as with all of them. But the full-time mechanics were aided by their knowledge of their car, a Renault 4. Soon they were known as the Foxes of the Desert. They finished second in '79 and third in 1980. Right from the start, says Claude, we're still optimistic, even though we are the underdogs against the others who have better cars that they can push harder, closer to the limits, and they can work on them every night. In '81, the Moreau brothers had a stronger car, a Renault 20, which was a quasi-Renault entry that then gave them victory in 1982. It was a just reward for an unlikely combination. Two-wheel drive battling against the four-wheel drives. It's going to be a tough battle today, but these other drivers, they're crazy behind us. Well, what do you expect me to do? Get out of the way? I'm not going to. On the left. But where are we going? I don't know where we're going anymore. What are you doing? Go left, go back. We're not on the right road here. Oh, go straight. Mind the jump. Oh, hang on a minute, I've got the wrong page in the road book. Well, apart from the jokes, along with their 13 Dakars, the Moreau brothers always held the true spirit of the amateur driver, and because of that, they eventually had to forget an overall chance of victory. However, their success in '82 is well remembered because it really was an upset. And the proof of this was in these incredible pictures that were made after the rally by Renault and Elf to celebrate their achievements. The Porsche 911 is a real driver's car. However, the German manufacturer has come to Dakar to be a legend at over 125 miles an hour. In '84, they took part for the first time with X after he won for Mercedes the year before. And X and Porsche went on to win Le Mans 6 times together. But for this first Dakar, X teamed up with actor Claude Brasseur, whilst the other car was for René Mech and Dominique Lemon. Mech here saying, I was watching the children to make sure I didn't hit them. I missed a hole in the road, I went into the hole and put the car on its nose. That year, X was the quickest when he won 9 from 18 stages, but he lost 3 hours in a ditch, whilst Mech finally won the event overall. X finished 6th in the overall standings, but Porsche had done an amazing job and their first ever Dakar. The next year, however, in '85, the same drivers were back with the new 959. Mech and X struggled at first, with the Belgian soon retiring with broken suspension. And then Mech also retired because of an oil leak. After the previous year, maybe we had expected more. X says, doing the Dakar at least allows us to test this prototype. It was very new, and although it's a surprise to be out so early, we did know that it was going to be very, very hard. In '86, the German team had to fight back, but once again, X lost time with a broken radiator. But Mech took the lead overall with ease. However, Mech got a scare after getting stuck in the mud just over the border into Senegal. But he kept smiling because he knew Jackie X was far behind in the overall standings. But could you believe it? The Belgian eventually ran into exactly the same problem. Is that the finish? It's in 8 kilometres. Yes, but how long do we have? The co-driver's saying, well, we've been gone for 2 hours 24. And X replying, well, we've got time. Let's not panic. Although they lost an hour with this problem, Mech won the Dakar, with X completing the Porsche domination by finishing 2nd overall. 3 years, 2 wins for Porsche, who then pulled out. When we come back, more from Dakar's glorious past. We hope that you're enjoying our 25 years of highlights from the Paris-Dakar Rally, and no matter how much research you do into it, just as I did before you come along and work on it for the very first time, you just have no idea how big the whole thing is. Everything is big. Trucks are big, sun is hot. It's very big, it's dusty. The plains out there in the desert are just never, ever ending. You have good days, you have bad days. It's very hot, it's very cold at night as well. Sometimes you can barely get to sleep under canvas because you are so cold. It's a rally of extremes, but it's an experience that you take home and you remember the good times, you erase the bad times. It really is something that everybody must do at least once in their life. However, without further ado, let's catch up with more highlights from the last 25 years. You bet Auriol has been a star of every Dakar since 1979. He's always spent January in Africa. Auriol was 26 years old when he started in 79, and riding his Yamaha, he finished 7th overall. But it was with his BMW and his famous number 100 that he is most remembered for. Leader of the rally in 1980 before being disqualified, he went on to win in 1981 after 3 stage victories. Forced to withdraw in 82, Auriol was close to missing the 83 Dakar because of a fractured arm. But feeling better just before the start, he went on to win 4 stages, arriving in Dakar to win for the 2nd time in 3 years. The following year, Auriol finished 2nd before joining the Kajiva squad in 1985. His first 2 years there were difficult, with an 8th and a retirement. But in 87, he won 4 stages, and the battle with Honda's Cyril Neveu was fantastic. Auriol had a 10-minute lead right up to the penultimate stage, but the rally was to bite back as he completed that particular one in great pain. He arrived at the finish with 2 suspected broken ankles. He said to the doctors, "I'm stopping bikes, that's all I have to say." So Auriol stopped riding, but in 88 he switched to 4 wheels, and for 3 years he drove buggies, alone, but without great success. It was all change in 91, and Lada, with whom he won 2 stages en route to 5th overall. In 92, he was part of the Mitsubishi squad for the Paris-Cape Town. He won 3 stages early on to establish a healthy lead. It all went wrong in Cameroon. He had a big scare when he lost 16 minutes, but he reached Cape Town with a slim victory lead of just under 5 minutes over Erwin Weber. In doing so, Auriol was victorious for the first time on 2 and 4 wheels. He said it's a brilliant moment. It's great to see all of these people here. It's just like the early days. It's just fantastic. Auriol then teamed up with Citroën and finished 3rd in 93 and then 2nd in 94 as his last competitive event. Then in 95, the one they called the African became boss of the entire Dakar rally. And since then, he's been in charge of the events, but after 9 years at the helm, no one has ever doubted his leadership.
Nous avons été amenés à prendre une décision unique dans l'histoire du Dakar.
Trucks on the Dakar are monstrous. The massive power of the trucks has meant that they are an enormous part of the Dakar, and since 1979 we have had 2 groups, the racers and the service trucks, carrying the spare parts for the bikes and the cars. And no matter what the ambition is, you really do need to have an amazing amount of foresight to build and race these trucks across the desert. In 1984, the DAF truck of De Roy had 2 engines in it and 2 ends. It was a monstrous piece of kit. It was a real prototype. And it eventually came to the mid-80s when the trucks were soon having power outputs of some 1,200 horsepower. And look at this. The De Roy truck speeding past essentially a Group B rally car, the Peugeot 405 of Harry Vatanen. But it soon came to a terrible end when the De Roy truck crashed. He unfortunately lost the life of his co-driver and he pulled out. In 89 there was no trucks, which came to 1990. We had more of a production-based class. The Polini saga started in 91, and over 3 years they were unbeatable. Aside from all the performance of these monsters, there is still a passion behind the wheel, as with conventional truck drivers. And similar to their road colleagues, there is a great solidarity between them. And this was evident back in 1997 when all of the trucks had problems in the stand. It showed a true spirit of the Dakar. Everybody helping each other out of their respective problems. With regards to results, though, Tatra have taken 6 out of 12 wins back in 90, 94, 95, 98, 99 and 01, thanks to Carol Laprace. The Oriental period started in 97, when Hino were victorious with a 1-2-3, a total Japanese clean sweep. They had time to sing, and they had time to ask the helicopter to stay in position so they could take a photograph. The Russian Kamaz trucks have also taken glory in 96, 2000 and 2002. They've had to adapt themselves, though, over the last couple of years from the introduction of the front-engine rules, meaning they had to change from their usual mid-engine trucks from back home in Russia. Our celebration of Dakar's 25th anniversary will continue in just a moment. Two-wheel drive buggies have always been in the Dakar. Right at the beginning, they never really had a chance to win. However, in the early 90s, things began to change with the pink buggies of the Duc de Bourgogne team. In those days, it was Jean-Louis Schlesser who had to stop in order to change the tyre pressures to cross the dunes. Things have come on since then. But in order to be light, Schlesser eventually opted to drive alone in 1992. The Frenchman convinced himself that the buggies had a chance to win, and in 1993 he created his own team, and every year since then Schlesser has entered a brand new car which was always smaller, lighter, faster and better. In the 94 Dakar, the buggy from the Bourgogne team creates the surprise with Vonberg's 3rd position in the overall standings. Schlesser struggled in 95, but in the 96 event he starts again in a single-seater with Jutta Kleinschmidt in a 2-seater. In 97, though, he keeps the 2-seater configuration. He won a stage before a roll put him out. However, Jutta Kleinschmidt does even better as she won 2 stages and finished 5th in the overall standings. 98 was a disaster on the last stage when he got caught out at the Dakar finish, but he still finished 5th with Enchantal Poals. In 99, Schlesser's efforts pay off as he wins with his 2-wheel drive buggy that nobody had expected to win on the toughest rally of them all. It was a big win for the driver, constructor and, of course, team manager rolled into one. I still don't realise what has happened. I guess it will sink in tomorrow. In 2000, he does it again by winning at the base of the pyramids. Could he be even better than Lotus's Colin Chapman? When we return, we'll relive more great moments from Dakar's first 25 years. On the 13th of January, back in 1997, the stage between Agadez and Auckland, Germany's Jutta Kleinschmidt took the stage victory on 4 wheels, having moved over from riding bikes. Hubert Auriol announced it to the bivouac. Today's a historical day for the Dakar. For the first time in its history, we have a real heroine, Jutta Kleinschmidt, who's won the stage. 4 years later, in 2001, she went one better by winning the rally outright. Now, Jutta was the first victorious woman, but several before her had also tackled the event. Christine Martin back in 83, looking towards the finish.
Ça fait 15 litres.
Ça y est?
Ça y est.
Oh, c'est bien ça.
Oui.
Merci, monsieur.
Happy for refueling and soon asking for even more help. A bit of a push start.
Tenez-vous bien.
Things haven't changed, have they? That's 20 years ago. Martine Renier, also 20 years ago, saying yesterday we were the leading two-wheel drive. We were even 7th overall without any assistance or anything. And now it's over. The pain of the Dakar has been all the way through it, written like a stick of rock from back in 1979. Andrea Meyer there, just going away to the left-hand side.
Really, only to be at the end of the day, at the end of the super stage, that's all. Who said it was a man's world on the Dakar? Peugeot and Citroën were the Dakar for 10 years. 1987 saw Peugeot debut with their 205 when Jean Todt was in charge. He had to find a job for the car after the banning of the Group B rally cars at the end of '86. With 3 cars in the rally, Peugeot were victorious 10 times from 19 stages. The 205 was a true rally car that was way ahead of its rivals, to the extent that what was a test turned out to be total domination by Ari Vatanen. In '98, Peugeot entered 4 teams with 205s and 405s. Vatanen dominated the rally before disqualification, before the then 2-time rally champion, Juha Kankkunen, finally won with his 205. In '89, Vatanen was nearly out in the prologue in Barcelona, but luckily he continued and fought with his teammate, Jackie Ickx. Once in Africa, team boss Jean Todt, though, took the decision to decide the winner by flipping a 10-franc coin. Vatanen came out as the winner. The last appearance of Peugeot was in 1990, which saw its 4th consecutive win, with Vatanen heading a podium clean sweep. Sister brand of the PSA group, Citroën, took up the challenge in '91, drawing off Peugeot's experience. And although it started badly with fire, forcing Ickx and Voldegaard out, Paris-Cape Town was not good for the team, as all 4 cars lost time with mechanical problems to eventually finish behind the 3 Mitsubishis. '93, Citroën were once again dominated by Mitsubishi, even with the experience of Hubert Auriol as a team member.
Creuse! La voiture à l'avance!
Don't go away, we have more from the Dakar Rally coming up. On the 12th of January 1983, the stage went from Durku to Agadez. It was the 5th Dakar, and it was a 1,617-kilometre stage in the Tenere Desert. But after 150 kilometres, the wind was blowing at 70 kilometres an hour, and the visibility went from 2 kilometres to nearly nothing. The sand was covering the tracks, and several drivers and riders were getting lost. Of course, at the time, there was no GPS navigation, and there was no way of anybody finding their way back. Nobody could help, and even the helicopters were grounded. The refueling trucks were at the tree of the Tenere, and many flew past without even seeing it, whilst for others, it was a relief. Some had the luck of finishing the stage in reasonable time, despite the conditions. We got lost, we got over the dunes, but we arrived just by nightfall. That's most important, and we're happy that we're here. The sandstorm hid all of the traps, and the drivers who didn't see the holes were in a panic. The whole caravan was up in arms, and some decided to make a bivouac and camp in the desert. Their call for help was hardly heard in the middle of the Tenere storm. Come dark, 40 had still not got into the bivouac, whilst the lucky ones had a feeling of returning from hell. A long, long day, nearly 20 years ago. When the night fell, it was hell, as we couldn't see even 3 meters ahead. We had to camp anywhere because it was safer, otherwise we would have gone right into the middle of nowhere. We've just arrived now, we haven't slept a wink. 24 hours later, 9 cars and 2 bikes were still missing, although some competitors had walked 60 kilometres to the finish. Finally, after 4 days, everybody was found safe and sound thanks to the help of the army and the local tribes. The drivers and the riders will long remember their drive through the Tenere Desert. It was this kind of story that makes the legend of the Dakar. Mitsubishi has been on the Dakar for the past 20 years, and after its debut in 1983, their first win came in 1985 with Patrick Zanaroli. The following years were less successful until the official team decided to expand in the early 90s with drivers such as Kenjiro Shinazuka. This soon worked with victory for Hubert Auriol on the Paris to Cape Town in '92 when they took a 1-2-3 clean sweep. Bruno Sabi took the win ahead of Citroën on only his second Dakar in '93. He said this is a team victory more than a personal one. The following years weren't as good after mechanical problems and the impossible dunes of '94 and their failures of '95 and '96, including Bruno Sabi's enormous roll. The disappearance of the French allowed Mitsubishi to dominate in 1997 and '98, allowing the drivers to fight amongst themselves, with Shinazuka eventually winning in '97.
This year is really the year of Kenjiro Shinazuka. We were really surprised about his performance in this race. He is, for me, the man of this rally.
However,
that year Shinazuka got stuck in the sand, and it was Jean-Pierre Fontenay who offered to help him out.
1998, Shinazuka ran into trouble and Fontenay took the win after 10 years on the Dakar with Mitsubishi. 99 and 2000, the Schlesser buggy was victorious against the Pajero, but they took the advantage back in 2001 when Jutta Kleinschmidt became the first ever woman to win the Dakar. And after her win, it was the turn of Hiroshi Mashioka last year, whilst this year he has made it 8 wins from 12 Dakars for Mitsubishi, and the first driver to do it twice for the squad. The poem Dakim, from the depths of Middle Africa. You pass so quickly. Have you seen the splendor of the desert, inhabited by nomads proud of their lifestyle? Accompanying caravans near the dunes, majestically set there by Mother Nature. You pass so quickly. Have you seen the joie de vivre of the African children standing at the roadside, their faces bright with smiles? You pass so quickly. Have you seen the fishermen at work on the river Niger? Have you seen the peasant farmers working in their fields near the alligators and with the hippopotami? You pass so quickly. Have you had the time to listen to the music of Africa? You pass so quickly. Will you know enough to be able to talk about Africa to your friends? Your object is to reach the finishing line before the others. Do you know anything about African family life, with large but close-knit families always ready to share? You pass so quickly. Did you know that the Africans have no word for exclusion? You pass so quickly. Did you know that poverty is a part of everyday life in Africa? But the people only feel at ease when they can share what bread they have without any guarantee of having more bread tomorrow. You pass so quickly. Did you know that in Africa guests are treated like royalty and that their hosts are their servants? You pass so quickly. Have you seen the African markets? If you have not seen and experienced all these wonders of Africa, come back again and consider yourself at home. You can then rest in the cool shade of the nomad's tent and contemplate the splendor of the African sun.
Et contempler la splendeur du soleil africain.
We hope you've enjoyed our look back over the last 25 years of Paris-Dakar history. It really has been ups and downs for everybody, but of course the winners are the people who stand out. The Hondas, the Yamahas, the BMWs and KTMs on 2 wheels, whilst on 4 wheels, all the way back in the early days, it was Range Rovers, but then the Peugeots came along, then the Citroens, and of course recently the Mitsubishis, and now the BMW X5. It can be horses for courses for anybody, whatever you're competing in, but everybody who gets to the finish is a winner. We now look forward to 2004, and the action will surely be no different from this year. Goodbye for now.